So we're in session 2, and we're going to talk a little bit about conflict. We're going to talk about conflict. Okay, not the most exciting topics, but it is a practical topic, and we're going to spend a little bit of time on that. It's going to hopefully land in a good place. Okay, um, conflict. I'm going to say this. This is sort of the big statement. Conflict is a good thing. Conflict is a necessary thing. Conflict is an important part of your story. If you don't have conflict, then there is no story. Every good movie, every story that you've ever heard, whether it's a movie, a book, whatever, you there's conflict. You learn conflict from the very first stories you heard as a kid. The Three Pigs, Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Okay, all of those stories, they have a problem, and you learn those stages, and they were told in threes, so you could remember them or whatnot. And the way the good story goes is there's a problem, and you overcame the problem. There was a problem. Goldilocks made it. She didn't get eaten or whatever. Three pigs. Eventually, the wolf got out of the story. But every great story has tension. Every great story has conflict. Every meaningful relationship has a problem to solve. Now, when you hear about conflict, there's a couple things that happen. There's probably two things that happen. One, you think about the conflict that you have or have had with your spouse or within your family. The second thing that probably comes up is the images you may have had if you grew up in a house that had conflict to whatever degree. Some of you had maybe a lot of it. Some of you had very little of it. But we are shaped by that image. Okay? We're shaped by that upbringing. And when we get into our relationships, one of the goals we try to say is that, I'm either going to do it the way my parents did it, or I'm not going to do it the way my parents did it. Most people say that. They say, we're not going to do it the way my parents did it. And every time I try to sort of root that out with a couple, I'll hear people say, well, I don't want to do it the way my parents did it. I'll say, well, how did your parents do it? Well, I don't know. But we're just not going to do it that way. Okay? So we know it's not good. It's not something that we want. But the reality is you have to have it. You have to have it on a certain level. Conflict matters. Without conflict, stories are boring. Okay? Without conflict, there really is no story. It doesn't even get started. Without conflict in your life, you don't grow. The characters don't develop. Okay? One of the things that Cole and I talk about frequently is the idea of character development within stories, and whether this is a good thing that happens or a bad thing. We get into a lot of arguments about Star Wars, and so whether episodes 8 and 9 were good, and it was all about character development, and I didn't think it was just terrible. So, but without conflict, nothing changes. So if you want to be in a situation, you want to be in a relationship with no conflict, that's good. That's great, because it's never going to change. It will just sort of stay there. Wherever it is, it's going to remain. But what we do know is that in every movie, the hero has something they have to fight. If you had any kind of superhero movie, and it was just, okay, Spider-Man gets his powers, Superman gets his powers, and they just fly around, okay. They got to rescue something. They got to defeat something. There has to be a villain. There has to be a problem. There has to be some kind of situation that needs to be fixed. And so you, as a couple, every one of us, we have problems that we have to overcome. And so what we need to learn is the idea we are grading ourselves. Make sure you're grading yourself on the right scale. Okay? It is not how little conflict you have. It is how well you overcome it, how well you handle it. With that, the idea is that if you have conflict in your relationship, hopefully this is the case. Hopefully there's conflict in your relationship because something in your relationship matters. Something in your relationship is important. Now, if all you're having is conflict over just dumb stuff, then it's just dumb stuff. Okay? But the reality is that when we watch movies like Jerry Maguire, and there was conflict at the end of that, and he's trying to build that business, he's trying to get that football star signed, but they have a falling out, and he realizes, hey, there's something important. I want this thing to grow, I want this enterprise to grow, but I also need you in that story with me. There was something at stake there. And you have to make sure that when you have this, there is something at stake. Now, what we're taught in, whether it came from your family or came from culture or whatever, is that conflict is bad. It's something that you have to avoid. And what conflict usually does is it creates a space. It creates a distance between you and the person that you have an issue with. Okay? So if you know that you're going into a situation, it doesn't always have to be with marriage. It could be something you're dealing with at work, something you're dealing with family. Each one of you, before you, and guys are good at this. I am incredible at this. When you know you're going to have an interesting conversation with your spouse, how many of you rehearse what you're going to say? Okay, you go through it in your mind, like, oh, and I have it all in my head, and it's airtight. There's no way you can argue it. Okay, I have, and what if she says this? I already got it. I already got it here. And what if she says that? I already got it here. And you have it sort of mapped out, and then you go into it. You go into the script, and then she says something you did not expect. Like, whoa. And then the conversation goes in a whole different thing. But we do this. We rehearse this. You have a script. You have a script that you go through, again, with your spouse or with the other people that you interact with. If you know you're going into work, you're going in, you're getting ready to have a hard thing. You have to fire somebody, or HR and all that. You kind of have it out, like, hey, this is what I'm going to say. A lot of times people will write it down. Oh, we're going to write it down. I'll have my talking points. We'll have it on. And sometimes that works. Hopefully it goes well. But we all have a script. There's a script that we try to rehearse in our minds. Now, if the script is basically built on the idea of avoiding conflict, then it's probably not going to go well because you sort of rehearse the idea, the best thing for me to do is to get out of this. The best thing for me to do is to end this quickly, but we won't resolve anything. So, what happens a lot, and if you look on page 15, there's a process, there's a cycle that almost every relationship has. Okay? And it's called pursue and distance. Pursue and distance. Okay? I like to call this the Dukes of Hazzard. Okay? How many of you watched the Dukes of Hazzard when you were a kid? Okay? Obviously the car's not politically correct anymore and all that, but man, I love that show. And I read a thing that said that a couple of interesting things about the show. There was never a jump in that show. So every time the Duke boys took the General Lee over anything, a train, the washed out bridge, the construction site, there was never a jump where the Charger survived. Never. Okay? So every single jump, the car wrecked. Okay? They went through 287 Dodge Chargers. 287. And they kind of had to figure out the show was coming to an end, and part of the reason the show came to an end is they were running out. They had bought all of the, I guess there were 1969 Chargers. They bought them all. And they're actually very hard to find now. But the show was amazing. The show was amazing to a 10-year-old kid. Okay? And that's why I thought, this is just awesome. But it was basically the same show every week. It was the same show every week. They get into trouble. Somebody's trying to do something in town, and they would get together with Boss Hogg and and sheriff and all that. There'd be a chase, and Duke boys would get away, and sheriff, and they would wreck. And the number of police cars they wrecked was amazing too. But that was on purpose. Okay, but In our relationships, there is a chase. There is a cat and mouse. There is a pursue and distance. There is the Duke boys and the sheriff. And the way it goes is this: is there's one person when conflict shows up. When conflict shows up in most relationships, there is a problem because one person is ready for conflict. Okay? One person is ready for the conflict. One person is not ready for the conflict. Okay? Now, I'm gonna surprise all the ladies here. We talked about this a little bit at the 8 o'clock session, but I'm gonna give you guys a little interesting idea. There are times for all men during every day where we are thinking of nothing. Okay? That we are thinking of nothing. It's actually been proven. It has actually been proven that if you could hook us up to a brainwave thing, there are points in our day where a doctor could say, this man's dead. This man is dead. He has passed away. Okay? Because there's nothing going on up here. Okay? And so when you come up to us and you ask us that question, which we dread, we don't like this question, okay? What were you thinking about? What were you thinking about? The answer is true. The true answer is nothing. Nothing. Okay? And you don't believe us. You don't believe us at all. At all. You don't believe a word we're saying. You think we're lying to you. It's true. We are not thinking about anything. Then, usually what happens is there's another step. So not only were we thinking about nothing, we get confronted with the idea, well, what you should have been thinking about. This is what you should have been thinking about. Why weren't you thinking about this? I would have been thinking about this weekend. I would have been thinking about the yard work. I would have been thinking about Christmas. I would have been thinking, there's all kinds of things you should have been thinking about. I'm just curious as to why you're not thinking about them. So let me give you some of these things, and then you sort of move into this place where you realize, hey, that it can move into conflict. Now, one of you, and it's not always guy versus girl, okay? And again, you can have this in every relationship, okay? But one of you is pursue. One of you is distance. Okay? Sometimes it's based on topics. Sometimes it is usually just the same person. Okay? There is one person who is going to start the conversation, or bring up the topic, or ask the question. There's something we have to discuss. Okay? And the other one has no idea what you're talking about, or no interest in what you're talking about, or really is trying to get out of it. They're really just trying to get out of it. And you create this cycle called pursue and distance, where you just start chasing each other. Okay? Now, what this looks like, and a lot of times we say, well, we've had this argument. We've been in this argument. We've been arguing for 20 minutes. We've been arguing for a half hour, whatever. And if you start poking at us, is what exactly were you arguing about? It's really not the topic that you think. So I'm going to give you a little scenario. We're going to act this out. So there's a couple. It's Monday, and they're in the kitchen, and the wife comes up to the husband and says, "Hey, we need to talk about your mom." The guy said, "I don't want to talk about my mom." Why? I don't want to talk about my mom. It was, well, when we were up there this weekend, I had this weird interaction with her. I mean, we were in this room, and she was talking to me, and she had this weird passive aggressive thing, and I didn't know what to do, and I just feel like we need to talk about this. Sweetie, listen, it's Monday. I just don't want to talk about my mom. Well, we need to talk about your mom. We need to go because we're going back up there this weekend, and I just don't want to find myself in that same situation. I just don't want to be in that same spot, and I just feel like we just need to finally get this out. We need to talk about this. I'm getting ready to go to work. I don't want to talk about my mom. Well, you never want to talk about your mom. Now, that was about 15 seconds. Okay? Is that going anywhere good? No, it's not going anywhere good. Okay? Something's going to come out of that. Something's going to evolve out of that. And the question is, hey, when you guys get into this full-blown argument, are you arguing about his mom? No. No. You are arguing about your mom. Okay? You are just trying to get engaged in a conversation that only one of you is ready. Okay? And so, for both of you, you are and this is shocking because when you got together, one of the things that you were amazed is like, you guys, look, we're just one. Like, I start a sentence and he finishes the sentence and we're just synergistic. We just mold into each other. Okay? The reality, no. This is the shocking thing. You are the only person who is thinking about what you're thinking about right now. You are the only person who's thinking about what you're thinking about right now. And when that comes to conflict, when that comes to your agenda, when that comes to setting your agenda, you have to recognize, first and foremost, is that whatever you're going to bring to this conversation, again, whether it's with your spouse, whether it's with your kids, whether it's with your family, whether it's with somebody that you work with, you are the only one who's thinking about it. We like to imagine that idea that everybody's thinking about this. It's important to me, so everybody else is processing it. Everybody else has this on their agenda. And so what I do with couples, and this started years ago for me, and it was in dealing with high conflict couples. This was like, we're in trouble. It's getting ready to be over. We're a step away from some bad decisions or some legal decisions or things like that. And I started to sort of process what this needs. And what I came up with is that if you both knew that it was coming, that it could be way more productive. If you both knew that the topic was coming, then you could be way more prepared. Now, going back to our example with the guy and the girl in the kitchen, if there was a way to twist that scenario to simply say this, like, hey, do you have any time this week? Yeah, I got some time Wednesday. What's going on Wednesday? Can we sit down and talk about your mom on Wednesday? Okay. And he still may be like, well, we're going to talk about mom. Okay? But if you both knew that this conversation was going to take place on Wednesday, and both of you are prepared for it, you will have a much better conversation. You show up to that conversation on Wednesday, and surprisingly, it's very fast because the guy has had some time to think about it. The guy's had some time to process it. And you show up into this conversation, and all of a sudden, somehow this guy says, yeah, I'm sorry. My mom, it's a weird thing. I'll talk to her. Now, how he was able to do that on Wednesday and not do that on Monday seems like a weird thing. And for the ladies in the room, like, yeah, why can't you just do it Monday when I was thinking about it? Okay? So there's an idea. It's called the microwave in the crock pot. Okay? The microwave in the crock pot. All right? Now, when it comes to intimacy, okay? When it comes to intimacy, guys are the microwave, girls are the crock pot. Okay? If you ask most guys, okay, we're gonna get into the roots a little bit. Okay? When you ask most guys, hey, when's a good time for intimacy? Most guys are like, now. Like right now. Are we ending early? I mean, what are we doing? Yeah. I mean, morning, noon, night. It don't matter. It don't matter. How much warning does a guy need? None. No, we're good. We're good. I'm good. Hey, we're good. Okay. Um, girls, you need a little more time. Okay. It's a little like, oh my gosh, dude, put a flag up, something. Just give me at least a warning. Just a little radar that says incoming. I mean, there's something you go. Yeah, give me at least a warning. It is not just. It's just not like that. There's a mood and there's like a thing. And you just get there's more time that is required for that. Okay. When it comes to conversation, it reverses. Okay. Girls are the microwave. I could go up to any female in here and I could just start asking you questions. I could ask you about your marriage. I could ask you about your family. I could ask you about the store. I could ask you about what's going on with this whole Guthrie kidnapping. There's all kinds of things. And what you saw on Facebook, I could ask you all kinds of questions right out of the gate. You'd be fine. You'd be fine. Completely fine. And you'll answer them. No problem. If I go up to guys and I just start asking random questions that are outside of this arena, then they're going to struggle. If I walk up to any guy and I just start asking him something about the Olympics or something about politics, all of a sudden there's going to be this like, wait a minute, hold on. Where's the marriage thing? Like, why are we doing this? Okay? And we can only process the information that we are ready and prepared for. Okay? We're all here. We all know, hey, this is a session. It's 9:30, and this is what we're doing, and we're ready. You're ready for this. There's going to be a notebook. This is going to be helpful. I know where he's going. We can only do the information that we are prepared for. Okay? No offense to all the guys here, but this is how we go. This is how we operate. Okay? We are the crock pot. We need a lot more warming up. So if there's any kind of conflict conversation that we are not prepared for, it's not going to go well. If you try to put the crock pot in the microwave and it just blows up, okay? We are just not that fast. So, if you just want conversation, then obviously launch into conversation. But if you want something solved, you need to give us more time. You need to give more time for that to be ready. And so, what I propose is something called a business meeting. Okay? Now this is probably the least sexy term that you could use for anything you're going to do in your relationship. Okay? The idea of an appointment. Okay? But you should set an appointment. You should set a meeting with your spouse. If you don't believe me, any one of you, just pull out your calendars. I know what my calendar looks like. I know what your calendar looks like. You're busy. You're busy. You are busy. But if you have hard things that you need to talk about, you should have an appointment. To simply say, hey, we're going to talk about this thing. Now, some of your conflicts, some of your worst conversations, if I say, hey, what was your worst conversation? You will probably tell me about a conversation that started on a particular topic, but that topic moves. That topic jumps tracks, okay? You start talking about money, then you're talking about the kids, then you're talking about intimacy, then you go into, oh my gosh, and the things you did last week and the week before and all that. And you started going all kinds of different directions. And part of that is it's unprepared. Guys, if they're in distance mode, if we're being chased, like the Duke boys, we're trying to get away. We're just having a great time. We're just trying to get away. Okay? What the Duke boys normally did is they would either jump the ramp or there'd be something that they would pull out and they would try to derail whoever's chasing them. Okay, so they had like grenades. One time he gets a crossbow and he's getting out there and he's trying to shoot an arrow and they're trying to blow stuff up. And that's really what we're doing. In the most loving husband way possible, We're trying to blow you up. Okay? We're trying to just blow you up so you stop chasing us. Stop chasing us. And I love you, but I'm going to try to blow your tires out. That's what I'm trying to do. Okay? And that means I can get more distance. I can move more in this direction. Makes me feel more comfortable. I just need more time. I need more time to process. I need more time to think and all of that. A successful company, they have meetings. There are meetings that you have. You have little team meetings. You have board meetings. You can have finance meetings, project meetings. You get a group together. They're going to work on a thing. Long-range planning. We got to build buildings, and we got to whatever you're going to do. We've got things we need to figure out. We have HR meetings. We got to figure out who is the staff, the right staff, and you know what those meetings are going to be about, hopefully before you get there. Okay? And you may not like it. You may not like having a staff meeting or a team meeting or the morning, we're going to have a 15-minute get-together before everybody starts or whatever. But you know that it's coming. If you are going to a budget meeting, you may think, oh my goodness, we're going to sit here for 2 hours to talk about the budget. But at least you know that's happening. Okay? You're not going to talk about something else. This is going to be the thing. So you're prepared for it. Now, if you've ever had a boss, if you've ever had an employer who is just, they'll barge in, and they just barge in, like, I don't care what you're working on right now. This is what we're working on. I need you to drop everything. You need to start working on this. Okay? And you're like, whoa. I'm working on this. I got all my other stuff that I'm trying to get done. But now you want me to stop and you want me to shift gears and go do this. And the reality is for that boss, do what? Me? I do this? I know. My family's up here. Okay? The boss, okay? Keyword boss. We think it's important. We think it's important. And because we think it's important, then that trumps everything else. And you just keep saying it over and over again. You just keep going with it. Okay? And so, what I call this, it's the business meeting, the appointment. It's sort of I don't want to say anti-date because it's not anti, but it's the other thing that you should be doing in your week. You should have a date night. You should have a date. Now, you cannot confuse these two. Okay? Date night is not, hey, I got you here at Chili's. Now we're going to talk about our finances. Okay? No. Date night is date night. Date night is fun. Date night is time together. Okay? We're not going to talk about, like in our 4 rules, the second rule, no blank talk. Okay? Meaning, we're not going to talk about this important stuff. But you need to have something else in the week that is built in. And it doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be this 3-hour thing. But you need to have something where we know what we're going to talk about. That we actually have an agenda. We actually know where this conversation is going to go. Now, a lot of times, younger couples with kids, I will have them, they'll do this on Sunday night. It's a very natural time, like 6 o'clock. And I try to time it between the 4 o'clock game and the 8 o'clock game during football season. But yeah, so more like a 7 o'clock thing. So you can fit it in. But you both know that it's coming. And some of it's just practical. We're just looking at our schedules. We're just looking at our to-do lists, things like that. And so the agenda, what the agenda is, page 19, the very simple agenda that I will give to people is something called the 3 T's. The 3 T's. Okay? These are the things, and you'd be surprised at how many arguments you've had because you missed these 3 things. Okay? But the 3 T's. And I recognize, as married couples, we're not arguing about political theory. Okay? Hopefully you're not having huge throwdowns over who gets elected or this Iran thing, oh my gosh. You have arguments based on these 3 things. These are usually the 3 things you're having arguments about. So the first one is time. Okay, this is super simple, and we just bought a thing called a skylight, which is like it's a computer thing. It's a screen, but it basically takes everybody's calendars and puts it all on one screen. So my calendar, Misty's calendar, the kid, everybody's on one screen. So we sort of know everybody where everybody's going, where everybody's at, all of that. But the simple question on the time idea is this: like, what do you got going on this week? What's different this week than normal? If you have a normal schedule, I don't need to ask you. Hey, I work from 8 to 5. I'll be home at 6 o'clock every night or whatever. What's different? Well, we have this thing this weekend. We're going to Amish country. I have a meeting. We have a meeting. We have a meeting at church. We have a board meeting or whatnot. So there's, we have a soccer game. The kids are playing. The grandkids are playing. And so you sort of put those things on the calendar. You sort of know, like, hey, where are we going? Some of your conflict has arisen on the day that the event was taking place, and one of you did not share that we were doing this, or one of you forgot that we had planned these things. Did you forget that we have this thing that we have to go to tonight, or whatever? Okay, and so it's a very simple thing. Hey, what do you got going on? What's on your schedule this week? What's different that you have this week? The other one is tasks. Okay, what do you got? What has to happen this week that again is out of the ordinary? You both should be helping each other. Okay, now there's always a sort of discussion on the equity of who's helping who. I have a busier schedule than you have a busier schedule, so maybe I can't do all of that. But some of that discussion is what are the things that you're trying to get done this week. And on Sunday, if I ask you, hey, I've got 5 things I need you to help me with, can you help me? Yeah, I can help you with all of those. And you can sort of space that out. If I need all 5 of those things done on Thursday, and I ask you on Thursday, then that's really not going to go well. Okay? Well, you didn't tell me, and all of a sudden, hey, I can only do 3 of these. Well, you never really help, Harry, whatever. But you sort of get into this weird place. When I was a chaplain at a private school for about 10 years, and the school was in Atlanta, and this was a high level, high achieving group of people, and the tuition for that school back in the late 90s, early 2000s, the tuition was about $27,000 for a high school student. Okay, so and it's probably doubled that by now. But we had one of the things I had to do every 2 weeks. I was on pickup duty, and so we had these little rotating things where I had to go out at 3 o'clock, and I had to be with these kids until the last one got picked up. I think the last one got picked up at 5 o'clock, and it was clear to everybody, 5 o'clock is the pickup. Okay, and so everybody knew this. We had this one couple, and everybody at the school was came from a very comfortable lifestyle. The husband for this couple was a surgeon. He was a famous surgeon. And if you had any kind of brain issue, this was the one that you would call. You got to go to this guy. This is the guy. He was married to a wonderful lady. She was a high-level attorney. And back in the days, do y'all remember phone books? Okay, so back in the days, she was the one on the back of the phone book. That's how big she was. She was on all the billboards and all this. So high-power couple, super smart. They went to all the Ivy Leagues. They had all the education. I couldn't even imagine their combined income. All of it. Just super smart, super talented. I would want both of them for certain situations. If I needed a lawyer, I would want to talk to her. If I had something going on up here, which I probably do, but if I wanted to, but I would go to these people, okay? Every single week, almost 2 or 3 times a week, their child, wonderful kid, was the last one picked up. Last one. And these super high talented, highly functional, intelligent, accomplished, professional people, they could not figure out how to pick their kid up. And this poor boy, I thought, oh my gosh, he's going to develop a complex. He's like, I know who they are, and they do this. And every single time, at least I was out there, and I'd ask all the other teachers, and they're like, oh yeah, they just knew. Okay, they would go out there, and the car would pull up. One of the cars would pull up, and it would be this, it's a loading zone. It's like 25 miles an hour. They're come whipping down in some huge Hummer, thing. They come rolling in. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. It was his job this week, and I told him. And then he would come. How many times I've told her this week, or wait, this week? Okay, and I just thought we all it was the inside joke. Like these are probably the two smartest people in the city, and they couldn't figure it out. They just could not figure out how to pick up their kid. And if you did just something like this, just get something, just get something on paper. I just know this is where I need to be, and this is what I need to do. The task thing is so super important. The first two are simple, time and task. You can do that simple. There are apps now that you can, obviously, if you do like the calendar thing, but there's apps, you can merge your calendars. Whatever calendar you're using, you can both be on the same calendar. There is an app called Paper that you could just write things down, there's a calendar you can put in your kitchen, you can put it on your door. There's all these things you can do, okay? Time and task should not be that hard. Okay? I mean, that one, 5-10 minutes. If you're spending a lot of time on this one, you probably need some other stuff. Okay? But then you get to the third one. The third one is topics. Okay? What is it that we need to talk about? And you get through the first two very quickly, and you give yourself some space so that you can spend some time on whatever the topic is. And you both know clearly what the topic is going to be before you go into this. Okay? So you're not surprising them, even at this point. I may know we're going to have a big conversation, but we sort of planned it out. Okay, this is what we're going to talk about on Sunday. We're going to spend 20 minutes, we're just going to talk about vacation. That's all we're going to talk about. Where are we going? What are we doing? Are we doing the same thing? All of that. Okay? And if you do this, it's helpful. It is a helpful thing. So you're not playing this hide and seek thing going forward. Now, where I got this, where I started to work with this, I lived in Reno for about 2 years, and I was a part of a church plant that was out there, but I was still doing my marriage counseling and all this stuff. And I had a friend ask, could I help his friend? I was like, absolutely. He told me a little bit about them, didn't give me a whole lot of detail, but I spoke to them on the phone. And they invited me over, and they said, we're just at high conflict. We can't figure out. We just fight all the time. We're just arguing all the time. And so I go to their house, okay, and I noticed when I pull into the driveway that there are two big Harley Davidsons in the driveway, okay. I'm like, oh, those are nice. Now Reno's a big bike town. There's a thing called Streets of Thunder or something. They'll have these festivals. They'll bring in like 50,000 bikes, and it just sounds like thunder. It sounds like a storm's coming. There's so many motorcycles going through. So Harley people, cool. At least I think that's cool. Okay, you can tell I'm not Harley guy. Okay, so go to the door, and the dude that opens the door, he is 6 foot something. He's bald. And he has this goatee, which I really respected, but it was totally down here. And leather vest, big boots, black T-shirt, just had the look. Just had tattoos all over his arm. Just looked menacing. Okay, he was the guy. He had a chain going to his wallet, and I would always wonder, like, who's trying to steal? Who's trying to steal from you? I want to meet the guy who's trying to steal from you. Like, I just think that's so unnecessary. Okay? And then I meet his lovely bride. She was husky. And not unhealthy husky, just sort of fearsome husky. She had on a matching vest. They were obviously together, and he had hair in a braid, and just I wouldn't fight either one of them, really. I just would not want to tangle with them. And so we sit down and we're talking for a little bit, and we're trying to, hey, what do you guys tend to get stuck on? What are the topics you sort of get frustrated with? All that. And eventually I just, what is the topic? Let's talk about this topic. And we bring it up, and I said, can you guys sort of walk me through your last big blowout? And they did. As soon as we mentioned the topic, it was like a switch turned on, and they just went at it. They just went at it. And they forgot I was there. They forgot I was there. Okay? And she had these arms. I'll never forget these arms, like just huge, massive arms. It was like Python, and she was just pointing at him, and he had his hands up, and they were just, they were red in the face. They were just going at it, just going at it. I was like, okay, time. Okay, all right, this is what we're going to do. And we're going to do something called fight night, okay? Now, I don't use that language with y'all, okay? You don't have to use this one, okay? I said, fight night. This is the way fight night's going to go. So I'm going to come back next Monday. And what's going to happen is we're going to start at 7 o'clock, and we're going to be done at 8 o'clock, okay? Between now and Monday, I want you to not talk to each other. You're not going to fight, okay? If there's something you want to discuss, I'm going to leave you a legal pad, and you're going to write down the things that you want to discuss on Monday. Okay? But when I get here on Monday, you can do whatever you want. You can yell, you can fuss, you can blow up, you can do whatever you want. But it will be over by 8 o'clock. And you will not be able to visit this topic again until the next week. And I put a little bonus in. I said, I don't care what you say to each other, you have to still end the evening romantically and intimately. I left before that, obviously. Okay. But whatever you say between 7 and 8, both going to have to find each other later that evening. Okay? I'm like, okay. So I come back the next week, and I come into the house, and they're both sitting there, and they're tapping their fingers. They're sitting there. Okay? I think, oh my gosh, this is bad. This is really bad. And I saw their legal pad, and I have never seen, like, something was written, crossed out, something was written underneath it, crossed out. Another thing was written, and they filled up 3 pages of legal pad, okay, with high pressure marks on this legal pad. And so I walk in, and I was like, okay, it's 7 o'clock. Go. It just went into again. Up in each other's face, doing the whole thing. I think this is bad. I'm gonna die. There's bad things are gonna happen here. And I just sat there. I didn't do anything. I didn't have any ingenious intervention methods. I didn't have any kind of here, let's do this, or write down your feelings. I didn't do anything. Okay. All I did, I said, all right, 7:20. And I kept going. 7:30. Kept going. 7:40. And they're still, just at it. But around 7:40, they said, all right, we got to come up with something, because we're not going to be able to talk about this for a week. And then I said 7:50, and they very quickly went into figure it out mode, because now we're on the clock. And they started throwing out solutions and this and compromises and how about you do this and I'll do this and fine, I don't like it, but we got to because this guy's here and fine. And I said 8 o'clock, it's over. And I said, I'll see you guys next week. I came back the next week, and the sheet was a little bit shorter, still a little aggressive, a little bit shorter, but we did it again, and they were not as heated. They were not as heated this third time, but they got to a point. I kept, all I said 7:20, 7:30, 7:40. By 7:40, we're like, all right, we're going to solve this, and they wrote down their solutions. And I started to think, this is actually helpful. This is actually helping them. I came back the next week. And I pulled in, and they both looked at me, and they were like, oh gosh, I'm disappointed that I'm here. And I asked them, I said, hey, you guys ready for your meeting? And they said, Reverend Anderson, I'm so sorry. We forgot you were coming. I said, okay, well, I won't keep you, but, can I see your sheet? We didn't make one this week. Okay. And I said, guys, just, again, I didn't mean to surprise you. I said, I want you guys to pay attention to this. Outside of our time on Mondays from 7 to 8, have you guys argued? No. About anything? Nope. We put it on the piece of paper. And so for the last month, basically, you've had no argument. Because one of the things they were trying to come at me with, like, we argue all the time. We argue in the morning. We argue before they go to work. We argue when we get home. We're sort of arguing throughout the day. And they just sort of went through this whole process. They just kept going. So you guys have had nothing but peace except for this little time on Monday night. And then I could start to see the light bulbs went on in their minds. They're like, you're right, this thing works. And I'm a huge advocate of it. Listen, if you're gonna get all worked up, hot and bothered, that's fine. Do it for 30 minutes. Do it for an hour, whatever. Okay? But don't carry it through. Don't carry it through. Okay? Some of your worst times of conflict were probably times where you started something on a Monday and you were mad on Monday night, and then you go into Tuesday and you're still kind of worked up, and Wednesday somebody wants to cuddle, so we kind of make up. And what we do, and this is the pattern. There's a lot of folks that have this pattern. You'll have a huge argument, and then you just kind of cool off, and then again, somebody wants to canoodle or whatever, and they want to be woo, But and we will have this moment of makeup, but then you'll ask, did you solve the problem? Did you solve the problem? No, we just made up. Okay, I still think you're cute. Okay, but did you solve the problem that you got into on the beginning of this conversation? No. And so the thing comes up again and again. And if you've had those situations where your conversations, if you've had the conversation about this, but you had the conversation about this last week, or you had the conversation about this 2 months ago, or 3 months ago, or it keeps recurring, try to put it in a meeting. The other unromantic thing that you can do is write it down. Keep minutes. Okay? Which sounds totally like, oh my gosh, I have to have a meeting, and now we have a work log, and I do this all day. Why do I need to do this? It keeps track. If we made a decision about something and you wrote it down, that's right here. It's right here, Johnny. You said you were going to do this. Right here. Okay? Most successful businesses are not dealing with the same problems over and over again. Okay? If you go back to Apple, if you go back to any of these big companies, if I go to one of these companies and I pull out and I say, hey, I need to see your October 2018 business meeting minutes, they can show them to me. And it'd be fascinating to see what the problems were. What were the problems they were dealing with at that time? And I'll ask, are you still dealing with those problems now? No, we're on to other stuff. We are way on to other stuff. We are going in a whole different direction. If they're still having the same thing on the agenda this year that they had in 2018, they're in trouble. They're in big trouble. Okay. And so that is a suggestion. So simply write it down. Put a little notebook together. And you have this sort of time, a recurring time, where you sort of face those things. And this is not just for, what I realized over time, this is not just for high conflict. I thought in the beginning, I needed a solution for high conflict. You're in trouble. We're making bad choices. Couples. No, this is really for everybody. And this actually applies to other things. If you have other relationships where you're struggling to sort of make traction, you can use this as well. So, but I would highly, highly recommend that you add some kind of other appointment to your week. You have your date night, but you also have your business meeting that you use throughout the week.